All right, officially, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for being here. I just have a couple of housekeeping items to direct your attention to. This is always a kind of interesting hybrid, in many ways, occasion, the GAA address that the President is legislated to give by the University of Saskatchewan Act in the province, because at the same time, it's potentially a GAA meeting. And for it to be a formal GAA meeting, we have to have quorum, which is 150. And at the moment, we don't have that when we combine the number of people present here in Convocation Hall with the number of people online. And so I am going to move directly to the President's GAA address. But at the end of that, I will ask our Chief Governance Office if we do have quorum, and if we do, then I will move to the formalities of adoption of the agenda by consensus, seeing if there's anything else that anybody wants to add to the agenda, and so on. And I'll make sure, of course, that we have time for as many questions and potentially answers to them as we possibly can make. So with that, I will commence this address, and I want to acknowledge that I'm speaking from Treaty 6 territory, of course, and the traditional homeland of the Métis, and that we pay our respects at this important time in our collective history to our First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place, and that we continue to work hard every day with increasing understanding to reaffirm our relationships with one another. I do appreciate this opportunity offered once a year by the General Academic Assembly address legislated through the University of Saskatchewan Act to reflect on the university's recent past and its clear and promising future. To those here in a restricted capacity, and to the many of you joining online as well, I thank you very much for devoting your valuable time to this event, which is an important one in the history of the university. To say that the recent past has been a time of change is an understatement. We've never in our 115-year history seen such rapid change undertaken by all of us, nor change that has been so successfully and confidently achieved by all of us. It could not have happened had we not worked so well together. Collegial governance bodies, such as this one, academic units, labor groups, student leaders, offices, institutes, centers, schools, labs, Indigenous partners and communities, private partners, and that list goes on. From the moment just over 2 years ago, when we shifted online for thousands of students and for many of our operations as a major U15 university, to now, when we're reacquainting ourselves with the richness of an in-person campus and learning environment, we have found ways, led by our outstanding pandemic response and recovery team, to work across these many sectors toward a common purpose that speaks to the integrity and the mission of this great university. The pandemic is not behind us, let me emphasize that. But today we can, nevertheless, feel proud of what we have collectively achieved so far during this most difficult time. We're a place that values a diversity of viewpoints, and we're also a place that continues to work together creatively to respond to the pandemic with no prior roadmap in place for the greater good. As our mission statement says, we have a well-deserved reputation for creativity, collaboration, and achievement, and it has never been on such good display. Our university community has worked together to keep students and staff and faculty as healthy and safe as possible during the pandemic. We had a goal from the beginning to avoid contributing to the rise of COVID cases in the province, and we continue to achieve it together through strong strategy, clear communications, broad and constant consultation, and informed decision-making. This all led to health protocols in the pre-vaccine pandemic period, to a vaccination policy late just last summer, to a vaccination mandate by the end of 2021, and by virtue of all of that, to a 99% vaccination compliance rate across a university of 30,000 people. This speaks, as I've always said, to the positive outcomes a community can achieve together when its policies are confidently communicated, agreed upon, and evidence-based. But during the pandemic, we have achieved far more than ensuring we did not contribute to the rise of COVID cases in the province. These achievements speak to who we are and what we do as a university that, as our vision statement says, contributes to a sustainable future, and to the importance of universities and to the world at this time. Our researchers and healthcare specialists have been supporting the province throughout the pandemic by serving in frontline healthcare roles, providing expert analysis, and engaging in COVID-related research. Faculty, staff, alumni, and students have contributed to the province through vital volunteer efforts as well, directly supporting those in need with food drives and by providing personal protective equipment, mental health supports, therapy dogs, and more. Our Global Institute for Water Security wastewater analysis team continues to monitor community COVID rates that give parts of the province crucial early warning information. The Canadian Light Source Synchrotron's call for COVID-related proposals attracted scientists researching antiviral drugs. Our Vito Labs vaccine candidate is in phase 2 human trials. We're grateful for the significant funding from all levels of government and from the private sector that has made a great difference in Vito's ability to continue to lead the country in this critical area of research. Its evolution into Canada's Pandemic Response Centre is well earned. Its pilot manufacturing facility is nearing completion. Vito's success also speaks to the importance of curiosity-driven research, which paved the way for it to be the first university lab in Canada to isolate the virus, design an animal model for it, and develop its vaccine candidates. Without prior decades of fundamental research, let me stress, their current vaccine work would not have been possible. Our many health-related disciplines continue to make important contributions to the well-being of the provincial population. Faculty, researchers, staff, students, and alumni have been engaging courageously and knowledgeably with the public dialogue on vaccines and other health measures. They've emerged as spokespersons and as models for the benefits of evidence-based decision-making that a university can provide. The province has been well served by having our health-related colleges and programs and research here at this university. Our faculty, staff, and students are helping secure the province's safety during these most health-imperiled years of our history. And their graduates, serving on the front lines under extremely challenging conditions, have been key to the province's ongoing recovery. From the beginning of the pandemic, we said that we needed to come through it successfully, not causing case numbers to rise in a community of 30,000 people, which is effectively the equivalent of Saskatchewan's third largest city. We also said that we should not lose sight of the many other features of our mission that needed to be realized. Our pandemic response should not be the only activity against which we measure our success, and it hasn't been. Our student enrollments remain very high, not something that every university in this country can say. This would not be so if our faculty and so many others crucial to our academic mission were not performing at such an impressive level and with such commitment. We were gifted an Indigenous strategy last summer by Indigenous elders and leaders. That's the first of its kind in this country. We signed an agreement with Métis Nation Saskatchewan on Indigenous identity, and we renewed our agreement with Wanuskewin, an important step on its journey to World Heritage Site status and on our own indigenization and reconciliation journey. We signed a joint commitment with the City of Saskatoon to accelerate the transition to a green community and continued our important work with the city on our Research Junction initiatives. We also created and approved our first university-wide equity, diversity, and inclusion policy and our first sustainability strategy. Last year was the second in a row that we were ranked in the top 100 overall globally and even higher in select categories in the Times Higher Education or THE impact rankings for Sustainability, which ranked more than 1,000 universities around the world. And just last week, we received news that we are now ranked far higher by the THE rankings for sustainability impact in a list that includes hundreds more universities than before. This is an extraordinary achievement, and it speaks to our commitment to the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals and to how our university succeeds at addressing one of the most important challenges the world faces today. Over the past year, we received the highest amount of research funding in our history. We conducted a successful renewal and refresh of our signature areas. Our Department of Drama celebrated its 75th anniversary as the first in the Commonwealth. Our music department, its 90th. Our Crop Development Center, its 50th. 2021 marked the 50th anniversary of Dr. Gerhard Hertzberg receiving the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. He worked here for 10 years that were crucial to his research achievements. In his acceptance speech, and it's documented on a plaque in Nobel Plaza, just yards from where I'm speaking to you today, he paid homage to the University of Saskatchewan. We can be very proud of our researchers inducted into the Canadian Academy of Health Sciences and the Royal Society of Canada, and those who achieved international recognitions as well. Our Huskies athletes have performed extraordinarily well during a very difficult season, with at least 8 teams going to the national championships. Today, we're at the point of a careful return to the campus again and to the many academic activities that we cherish and thrive upon. We've been waiting for this for over 2 years. We thought we were at this point a few months ago, and we almost were, only to be delayed by the Omicron variant. I thank everyone, and in particular, the many staff who worked on the campus to keep it ready for our return, and our many thousands of students for their contributions, patience, and perseverance as we ensured academic excellence and the university's continued health and safety simultaneously. We're at the point of careful return, but we're also at the point of no return. The world has changed during the last 2 years in fundamental ways. So having a goal of returning to what we were prior to the pandemic would be a failure of vision and of leadership. To be a university that is responsive to what the world needs means understanding what has changed in the world over the last 2 years and what the post-pandemic world will need of us. As places of learning, universities must be instructed by the pandemic and use that learning as an imperative for change. This doesn't mean changing who we are. It doesn't mean changing our vision, mission, and values, but it does mean changing elements of what we do and how we do it. Together, we have the opportunity to reevaluate our role with the communities we serve, our students, the city, the province, and beyond. If the pandemic is revealing anything, it is that humanity's healthy future depends on evidence and data-based scientific truths being widely circulated and understood. High infection and mortality rates are a direct result of widespread misunderstanding, deliberate misinformation, skepticism of information, and a politicized rejection of scientific truths. I submit that addressing these challenges lies directly in the domain of a university such as ours. It was an historic challenge for scientists to identify and understand the COVID-19 virus and to design vaccines to fight it effectively. Decades of curiosity-driven research and a swift focus on vaccine development and manufacturing enabled by it saved millions of lives worldwide. But the even greater challenges to health and prosperity worldwide, it turns out, were unexpected and they were different. Science did what it was called upon to do, but its success was too often thwarted by a mistrust of authority, of truth, and of its messengers. We will continue to rely on scientists to predict future viral threats and to create vaccines for them. Hence the significance of VITO becoming Canada's Centre for Pandemic Research and of being supported by CEPI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, whose mission is to ensure the world is well positioned to fight the next pandemic. But what we will also need is the public policy, the communications and educational strategies, the political trust, and the collective sense of purpose that to date has been lacking globally. Together, universities need to identify those areas of urgent public need accurately and deliberately address them in academic programming and in research. This work is largely in the purview of the social sciences, humanities, and fine arts. If ever there was a need for this expertise in history, political science, policy, ethics, equity and diversity, psychology, religious studies, education, law, business, anthropology, and so on, it is right now. The pandemic has revealed we need critical thinking, acquired and sharpened at universities such as ours more than ever before, in order to lead public opinion, not to follow it. And the pandemic has also revealed that universities need to reinvigorate their roles as thought leaders, engaging with the most important issues of our time, and not only in the classroom and the lab, but in the public sphere as well. At this moment in our history, this is what it means to be the university the world needs. And with our unique combination of disciplines and talents, so many of them in the humanities, fine arts, and social sciences, we must continue to step up and supply it. We're glad to be gradually returning to campus, but our 2 years of remote delivery have shown us we have the technology to serve learners in distant communities or who lack the means to move to our campuses. It will be one way in which we can address the inequities, the many inequities that the pandemic has revealed. The effects of a digitized economy that became apparent shortly before the pandemic, and which this university identified and was alert to, have only been accelerated. The need for people to receive education at many different stages of their lives, the need for upskilling, reskilling, and green skilling in a workplace with constantly evolving demands of employees, the need for shorter times to completion of degrees, the need for micro-credentials and other forms of attainment that do not require the traditional several years of commitment, which we're also achieving through a streamlined program approval process. The need for experiential learning opportunities and for international programming and research opportunities. In fact, the Conference Board of Canada, in its report of March 3rd this year, titled Beyond the Classroom, the Future of Post-Secondary Education Has Arrived, details many of these, encouraging the post-secondary sector to creatively ensure these learning options that currently exist only on a small scale are expanded. The encouragement isn't only coming from there. Students are signaling they require greater flexibility in programming and credentials, as are graduates and others already in the workforce or wanting to re-enter it, to whom we must attend. Our University Plan 2025 calls attention to these. The pandemic has shown we identified them accurately, and it's increased the urgency for us to respond. To date, we are making progress on each of these, and I encourage us to continue that good work and to making it a priority. These expectations for curriculum redesign don't stop with students past, current, or future, or with conference boards. They're held by local employers as well, many of whom here are our alumni. They see us as their source for talent, and our students see them as key to leading prosperous and fulfilling lives. The external engagements we conducted at the beginning of our post-pandemic shift project revealed that employers' needs for more interdisciplinary education, experiential learning credentials, and the human skills of communication and leadership have intensified through the pandemic. And they look to us to understand those needs and to respond to them. If we don't, the signs are clear that these requirements will be satisfied elsewhere in an increasingly competitive environment on this continent. In its annual assessment of the fastest growing companies in Canada, the Globe and Mail recently listed 4 in Saskatoon, each of which has close ties with our university, either because they employ many of our graduates, because they were started by them, or because they benefit from the kind of expertise we can supply. They're one part of a vibrant Saskatoon innovation culture that is the second fastest growing in this country. Other parts include Innovation Place Research Park, the fact that Saskatoon has seen a 15-fold venture capital investment growth in recent years, the fastest on the entire continent, and the fact that our university is here working in a close relationship with the city, educating thousands of creative and innovative graduates annually. You can add to that our world-class infrastructure that includes our Canadian Light Source and Veto Labs, our cyclotron, our Global Institutes for Water Security and Food Security, our SuperDarn radar network, as well as the fact that we have 17 colleges and schools from which employers can draw expertise and creativity. The sum of all this, concentrated in this medium-sized city, is formidable and puts us in Saskatoon on the cusp of even greater influence and impact. At the same time, Canada's innovation performance, the key to our collective future of prosperity and upward mobility, is poor relative to our OECD partners. The percentage of youth not in employment, education, or training is high in this country, and our ever-increasing student numbers prove we're responding. The rate of master's and PhD attainment in Canada is low, and we are responding there as well. Labor market gaps, especially for Indigenous peoples, are far too large. We have a critical role to play there, and we've been playing it. One area of real growth in Canada is immigration. We have a critical role to play there too, attracting the best talent from around the world because of who we are, what we do, and how well we do it. Our international student numbers continue to climb, one measure of our positive impact in this important area. Our role in this innovation ecosystem is critical. Economic growth in this country is predicted to be stagnant, but not in Saskatchewan. Keep in mind that we are the university named for a province that has more than 40% of Canada's arable land, a third of the world's potash resources in a time of global food security crises, 1/4 of the world's high-grade uranium supply at a time of global carbon fuel reduction, at least 1/10 of the world's rare earth and precious minerals supply at a time of unprecedented demand, and enormous freshwater resources at a time of worldwide clean water shortages. Saskatchewan is the country's largest supplier of canola, peas, and lentils at a time when the future of the world's population depends on plant-based protein as never before. No other province can boast these timely attributes that are so important to the world, and no other university has the combination of attributes to be as central as we are to their future success. Playing our role in the local, regional, and national innovation ecosystems will be crucial here. They will not thrive without us. A major research-intensive medical doctoral university is their most unique feature. We must ensure we support entrepreneurship and scaling up of Canadian-based firms through our programming, research, and external connectivity. With many thousands of entrepreneurship-minded students and faculty, it remains for this university to be deliberate about an innovation strategy, that is, translating knowledge into impact, that extends across our research and programming activities. Innovation is woven throughout our University Plan 2025, where we commit to developing the knowledge and skills to thrive, to moving discoveries into the world, and to being a go-to resource and partner for the people of Saskatchewan and beyond. And that's what we're doing by encouraging entrepreneurship-focused curricula, establishing a campus incubator for entrepreneurship, and working more closely with Innovation Place to develop an innovation corridor that combines our respective contributions and potential. Foreseeing early on in the pandemic the need for imminent changes, but as yet uncertain what they would look like, we began our post-pandemic shift project. I thank the many, and there were many, who led it, and the many across the university who participated in its work. It identified the new features that would be critical to our success in the areas I just mentioned. The project showed this, that we will need to lead differently and be less hierarchical, more adaptable, and inclusive. We will need to innovate and encourage risk-taking and experimentation. We will need to engage with each other differently, focused on equity, ensuring that compassion and mutual respect drive our work together, underpinned by the principle of Wacotowin that teaches us that our interdependence will define and determine our future. And we will need to support each other, ensuring our collective mental health and wellness. These shifts in how we lead, innovate, engage, and support give us the foundations for our post-pandemic university that responds to what the world needs of us. I emphasize the importance of this work by our colleagues and encourage all parts of the university, colleges and schools, departments, programs, leadership offices, all of us, to ask ourselves, with each decision we are making now, does it mean we are leading differently? Does it mean we are being more innovative? Is it based on being equitable? Does it mean we are supporting each other? Or does it mean we're merely returning to the way things were prior to the pandemic just because that's what was familiar to us? In the General Academic Assembly address that I gave in 2016 right here, I proposed that great universities have high levels of connectivity, diversity, and sustainability of all kinds, including environmental and cultural. These became pillars of our University Plan 2025. In the intervening years, together, we have been achieving them. In setting ourselves the goal of responding to what the world needs of us, we are increasing our connectivity. With our EDI policy, we are increasing our diversity and inclusion. And with our sustainability strategy and action plan reflected in the recent THE impact rankings that I mentioned a few minutes ago, we are contributing to sustainability. Now, we are going further and setting our sights on how to be an excellent, innovative university for a post-pandemic world. Our response, together, to the pandemic demonstrates the value of this university to the province and far beyond it. We will continue to contribute to the economic recovery, to internationalization, to talent attraction, to leading on sustainability and climate change, on equity, diversity, and inclusion in this country. These are extraordinary achievements, and without relaxing our commitment to them, we should be acknowledging them. I want to end with remarks on the devastating military invasion of Ukraine. Our province has many citizens of Ukrainian descent. We conduct programming and research related to Ukrainian culture, language, politics, and history. And we have partnerships and student exchanges with institutions in Ukraine. And most importantly, given the increasingly dangerous world we're now in, a university is fundamental to everything that invasion contravenes and opposes. At each convocation, I state something along the lines that a university is a wonderful thing, a great experiment in the ongoing conversation we call democracy. Universities are crucial participants in that conversation. We are reminded daily that we are so fortunate to live in Canada and to have the freedoms we enjoy. The shocking events that have unfolded in Ukraine over the last several weeks are troubling for all of us, and particularly for our many Ukrainian and Russian university community members. We are reaching out to help. We have many experts who have weighed in on the consequences and realities of the Russian invasion. We have created ways to fundraise for Ukrainians in crisis, including through the Nasser Family Emergency Student Trust and the Marquis Hall Support for the World Central Kitchen that is on the front lines of providing fresh meals to Ukrainians in need. We are staying in touch with each of our Ukrainian students and helping them with their immigration status, mental health, potential program interruption, and more. We are staying in touch with each of our Russian students as well. I have written personally to my counterparts at the Ukrainian universities with which we have formal relationships. The College of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies is facilitating the hosting of displaced research trainees. We are connected with the Tri-Agency Special Response Fund for Ukrainian trainees. We are working closely and continuously with the City of Saskatoon and the Open Door Society, as well as with the Government of Saskatchewan, which is partnering with the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress of Saskatchewan, with Ukraine, and with the federal government to coordinate the intake of Ukrainian refugees here. And we are also about to implement a Scholars and Students at Risk Fund to help provide a haven for international students facing challenges to enter or remain at the U of S through the delivery of bursaries. This fund will aid those emerging from humanitarian disasters, including Ukraine and neighboring nations affected by the current war, and other international situations that might arise. Circumstances which pose immense financial challenges to students wanting a new start or to finish what they have begun. Let me thank you for attending this year's General Academic Assembly address and for listening to these words of encouragement regarding the role we have played during the ongoing pandemic and to our response in an eventual post-pandemic world. As we close in on the end of another winter term, I wish every member of our university community well and offer my hopes for a healthy and fulfilling spring and summer. For each of you, thank you.